Okay, hello again. Today I want to try to give you a taste of what Chinese poetry is about. We're not going to look at every poem in the video, but I want to look at a few to kind of show you how it's done. Um, in Volume A, page 1318, peach tree soft and tender, how your blossoms glow. The bride is going to her home, she well befits this house. Obviously, the metaphor here is a peach tree as a symbol of a bride. And in traditional societies, when a couple marries, the bride goes and lives with her new husband and his family. Um, Actually, in the house with her in laws. In the first stanza, um, she's like a peach tree in bloom. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the peach tree in bloom. Around here, um, the white trees that bloom early in spring are Bradford pears. Um, peach trees are similar. The covered in flowers, beautiful. In the second stanza, peach tree soft and tender, plump, the ripening fruit. The bride is going to her home; she well befits this house. Um, a person like Joe Mitchum who owns peach orchards, does he grow the trees for their flowers? Maybe not. It's about fruit, right? In traditional societies, marriage is not about love, it's about family. And so her number one duty is to produce children for her husband. Plump the ripening fruit. Peach tree soft and tender, its leaves spread thick and full. The bride is going to her home, she well befits these folk. She is strong, she is fruitful, good for the family, producing children, good wife. In the next one, the voice we hear speaking is the voice of a woman. Plums are falling, 7 of the fruits. Many men want me, let me have a fine one. Plums are falling, 3 are the fruits. Many men want me, let me have a steady one. Ripe plums are is a in this poem is a metaphor for a young woman who is ripe for marriage, of marriageable age. But you notice in the first stanza there are 7. In the second there are only 3 left on the tree. Getting at the sense that time is passing. When you harvest fruit, there's a window of opportunity. You don't want to pick it too soon. It won't be ripe. It won't be good yet. But you can't leave it on the tree forever either, um, because then it gets rotten. It gets overripe, and that's not good either. So you have to pick the fruit within this fairly narrow time frame for it to be any good. In the last stanza, plums are falling. Catch them in the basket. Many men want me. Let me be the bride of one. Just like there is a time frame within which to pick the fruit, so a girl has, in a traditional society, a limited time frame in which to attract a man to be her husband. You know, and even in our society, and even with men, I think there is some truth to that. Um, my brother is 56. He's never married. You think he's likely to now? I mean, he's pretty used to being on his own. And trust me, when you're living with somebody, you have to kind of adjust to take them into consideration. You can't just do whatever you feel like doing. You always have to think about them. So I think it's highly unlikely. I get the sense that she thinks time may be running out. Her her opportunity is ticking. Now, I want to emphasize that that clock ticking is not the biological clock of childbearing age. The window of opportunity in a traditional society for a girl to get married happens much younger. Um, in fact, in traditional societies, girls usually get married um, essentially as soon as they reach puberty. As soon as the plumbing starts to work. And, you know, by the time she's in her mid 20s, time's running out. Page 1319, the one on top, dead roe deer. A roe deer in the meadow, all wrapped in white rushes. Somebody has been hunting, poaching really, because if you shoot a deer, and they would be shooting with bow and arrow at this point, not guns aren't invented yet. And then you're wrapping it up in white rushes to hide it, um, so you can come back and get it later. He's worried about getting caught hunting on somebody else's land. Now that's kind of an important thing to remember as we see what this roe deer is being compared to. The maiden's heart was filled with spring. Okay, what's a maiden? It's a young girl, and in traditional society, um, virgin, was filled with spring. What emotions do we associate with spring? Oh, one of them is love. A gentleman led her astray. So I think the roe deer wrapped in white rushes with maybe um, some blood seeping through the rushes from its wound is a metaphor for um, the girl losing her virginity. In the days before KY jelly, um, a girl's first sexual experience would often produce a little bit of blood as the hymen ruptures. Undergrowth in forest, dead deer in the meadow, all wound with white rushes, a maiden white as marble. White is a universal symbol of purity. Softly now and gently, gently, do not touch my apron, sir, and don't set the cur to barking. A cur, of course, is a dog, and a cur has kind of a negative association, kind of like mutt. Um, don't touch my apron, sir. Think about what parts of the body an apron would cover. Um, the cur, I think, refers to um, the the passion that killed her virginity. Last one from this section I want to look at is on page 1322. Huge rat. Huge rat. Huge rat. Eat my millet no more. Millet is a grain um, similar to wheat. For 3 years I've fed you, yet you pay me no heed. I swear that I will leave you and go to a happier land, a happy land, a happy land, and there I will find my place. Huge rat, eat my wheat no more. For 3 years I've fed you and you show no gratitude. I swear that I will leave you and go to a happier realm, a happy realm, a happy realm. There I will find what I deserve. There's a resentment building, right? I'm not getting treated fairly. Huge rat, eat my sprouts no more. For 3 years I fed you and you won't reward my toil. I swear that I will leave you and go to happy meadows, where none need wail and cry. A huge rat is a reference to the the nobleman, the landlord, who's living off the work of his sharecroppers. Um, a sharecropper is a person who doesn't own any land, who um, who lives on and works um, growing crops on a piece of land that belongs to somebody else, and they share the crops. And the complaint in the poem is that the person who's doing the work isn't getting uh, enough of the crops to take care of themselves. They're being taken advantage of because they're too poor to own any land themselves, and so they're kind of forced into this arrangement where their share of the produce of their work isn't as big as they feel like they deserve, and so it is a complaint um, about mistreatment of the poor by the wealthy landowners. The other selection I wanted you to look at in Chinese poetry is in Volume B, Tang Dynasty Poetry. And again, I'm not going to look through every one of these, but I want to pick out a few samples to talk about a little bit. On Volume B, page 1114, in middle years, I'm rather fond of the Tao. Tao is the Chinese word for way, and it refers to a strong element in Chinese thought, the way of nature, living in harmony with nature. My late home is at the foot of Southern Mountain. When the feeling comes each time I go there alone, that splendid things are empty, of course, I know. That's a very Buddhist idea. Um, both Buddhism and Taoism are part of the mix that makes up Chinese religion. Um, the and both Buddhism and Taoism teach this idea that wealth and power are ultimately empty. They don't bring satisfaction and happiness. I walk to the place where the water ends and sit and watch the time when clouds rise. Meeting by chance an old man of the forest, I chat and laugh without a day to return. Taoism teaches that the way for us to live is simply, naturally, spontaneously, no schedule, um, uh, learning to go with the flow of nature. That's the way to live in harmony with it, to um, achieve real happiness. Page 1118. South of the walls we fought. We fought last year at the Sangan source. This year we fight on the Kong River Road. We washed weapons in the surf of Taochi, grazed horses on grass in Sky Mountain snow. And these are all places where the Tang dynasty fought major battles. Thousands of miles ever marching and fighting until all the grand army grows frail and old. The Xiongnu, sometimes translated as Huns, there were a barbarian, warlike people who were the enemies of the Han dynasty that came well before the Tang. Um, the Xiongnu treat slaughter as farmers treat plowing. How do farmers treat plowing? Well, the farmer has to plow the ground every year before he plants his crops. It's routine. That's how the Xiongnu treat warfare. It's routine, constant. Since bygone days, only white bones are seen in their fields of yellow sand. The Xiongnu live in the Gobi Desert. It's arid land. You can't grow anything there. No wonder there were raiders. The House of Qin, that's the first Chinese dynasty, built the wall to guard against the Turk. The Turks were originally nomadic peoples of Central Asia. They only migrated into Turkey in fairly recent times, the Middle Ages. For the House of Han, the beacon fires were blazing still. You know, this has gone through several dynasties of Chinese history here. This fighting has been going on and on and on and on. Beacon fires blaze without ceasing. This was a way of sending messages. Hey, we're being attacked over long distance in the days before internet or even telegraph. The marching in battle never end. They died in fighting on the steppes. Their vanquished horses neigh, mourning to the sky. Kites and ravens, birds of prey, peck men's guts. The birds scavenge the bodies of dead soldiers, flying with them dangling from their beaks and hang them high on boughs of barren trees. Um, Kites will take pieces of meat and stick them on the tips of branches or on thorns on trees to hold them there. That's how they try to store food for later. And of course, in this case, These are pieces of human bodies. The troops lie mud smeared in grasses, and the general acted all in vain. Now I truly see that weapons are evil's tools. The sage, the wise man, will use them only when he cannot do otherwise. A very Taoist perspective on war. It is ultimately pointless and empty. Page 1120, the bottom of the page, drinking alone with the moon. A pot of wine among the flowers. I drink alone, no friend with me. I raise my cup to invite the moon. He and my shadow and I make three. The moon does not know how to drink. My shadow mimes my capering, but I'll make merry with them both, and soon enough it will be spring. I sing. The moon moves to and fro as he sways and dances. I dance, my shadow leaps and sways. Still sober, we exchange our joys. Drunk, and we'll go our separate ways as he passes out. Let's pledge beyond human ties to be friends and meet where the silver river ends. The silver river refers to the Milky Way in the sky. Um, what's the feeling? Because lyric poetry is about expression of emotion. The feeling I get is one of loneliness. You know, the only drinking buddies he has are the moon and his shadow. Not much in the way of company, right? Now, part of the background of this is the Chinese civil service system. It's the Chinese who invented the idea of the civil service exam. The British got the idea from the Chinese, and we got the idea from the British. You know, the civil service exam is a test you take for government jobs. And in the Chinese system, it covered the classics of Chinese literature, including, by the way, the classic of poetry, part of which we read in Volume A. Um, Now, you need to understand that most people in the ancient world, China included, could not read and write because there were no free public schools. Okay, the only way you could go to school was if your family could pay for you to go to school. And so, you know, most people couldn't even take the civil service exam. Of those who took it, on average, about 3% could pass it. It was tough. But if you could pass it, that was your ticket. You had a government job for life. But the price tag was that they would move you every year to a new post. And the reason they did that was to keep down corruption. You know, it would take you time to make contacts and start taking bribes, and by the time you can do that, then they move you to a new place. You got to start all over again. So these people were separated from family, and family is very important in China. In fact, in China and Japan, family name comes first, whereas with us it comes last. My name in English is David Hammond Hodges III. Okay, family name Hodges comes last. Individual name comes first. We stress individuality. China's the other way around. In China, my name, if I used my English name, would be Hodges Hammond David. Okay, family name comes first. Family is more important than individual. Um, and so he, you know, these people would be away from their families for long periods of time. and he misses that. He misses that. Doesn't get to see his parents. Remember traveling in those days meant walking. Limit how far you can walk and go see somebody, right? Page 1126. What happens when you have all this political upheaval that they had in the Tang Dynasty, is poor. People get poor. My thatched roof is ruined by the autumn wind. In the high autumn skies of September, the wind cried out in rage, as if weather has emotions, tearing off in whirls from my rooftop 3 plies of thatch. Thatch is straw that was used to make roofing. The thatch flew across the river, was strewn on the floodplain. The high stalks tangled in tips of tall forest trees. The low ones swirled in gusts across ground and sank into mud puddles. So it blew the roof off his house. The children from the village to the south made a fool of me, impotent with age as he is. Without compunction, plundered what was mine before my very eyes. Brazenly took armsful of thatch, ran off into the bamboo. They're stealing the thatch that blew off his roof, presumably put it on their own houses. I screamed, lips dry and throat raw, but no use. Then I made my way home, leaning on staff, sighing to myself. A moment later, the wind calmed down. The clouds turned dark as ink. The autumn sky rolling and overcast, blacker towards sunset. It gets dark. It looks like it's going to rain. And our cotton quilts were years old and cold as iron. My little boy slept poorly, kicked rips in them. The bedding is old and it's worn thin, and so it doesn't really keep you warm, and it tears easily because it's really worn out. Above the bed, the roof leaked. No place was dry, and the raindrops ran down like strings without a break. A constant stream of water, not drips. I have lived through upheavals and ruin and have seldom slept very well, but have no idea how I shall pass this night of soaking. He is cold and wet and miserable. Oh, to own a mighty mansion of 100,000 rooms, a great roof for the poorest gentlemen of all this world, and a place to make them smile, a building unshaken by wind or rain, as solid as a mountain. Oh, when shall I see before my eyes a towering roof such as this? Then I'd accept the ruin of my own little hut and death by freezing. In the middle of his poverty and misery, he dreams of a safe and sturdy home to live in.